This just in from college football. While not officially filing paperwork for the NFL draft, Colorado two-way star Travis Hunter has done the next best thing. Asked by ESPN today if he would, as expected, put his name in the upcoming draft, he replied, quote, "Definitely, for sure," end quote. Let's get into this with our NFL draft analyst, Ryan Wilson, who is definitely, for sure, a Travis Hunter expert because he certainly has the chance to talk about him. Ryan, first of all, your reaction to this news here that Hunter is definitely at some point going to declare for the NFL draft.
I was surprised by this, Jeremy, as being definite and for sure that the sun will come up tomorrow, because what else is Travis Hunter going to do, right? We talk about all the time when a player has accomplished everything he can accomplish in college, why hang around? And I think Travis Hunter has checked those boxes. He's reread the test. He's checked the boxes again. He's gotten all the answers correct, and the next step for him is to get out into the professional world and get himself a job, and I think that's what's on the horizon. The only question becomes, how early will he go in the draft? Because he is a truly special talent on both sides of the ball, Jeremy.
Yeah, in all of our CBS mock drafts, he's the number one pick. So in terms of where he's going to go, at least for all of the mock drafters, he's top of the board. What puts him at the top of the board in terms of what the scouts like about him?
Yeah, he's the best player in this draft class. I'll give you a top-of-the-board caveat in just a second. But what makes him special is what he's able to do as a cornerback and, what he can do as a wide receiver. He is truly special. You have to go back to Champ Bailey in the late 90s, coming out of Georgia, who was essentially the last two-way player. Didn't do it that much in the NFL, primarily a cornerback, and played at a high level. But this is a guy, Travis Hunter, who can play shutdown corner as much as you can be a shutdown corner in today's NFL. And then 15, 20 snaps a game at the next level, he can be an absolute weapon as a wide receiver. If you're asking for comps, I think wide receiver-wise, he gives you a little bit of Devonta Smith. Cornerback-wise, he feels like a mix for me of Joey Porter Jr. and maybe Sauce Gardner. Not quite that long, but he is fluid. He can run routes for you. He is a ball hawk, and all those things translate. Now, in terms of being the best player in this draft class, he's my number one player, and I think a lot of folks would agree with that. But me and my buddy Rick Spielman did a mock draft today on the With the First Pick podcast, Jeremy, and we actually had Travis lasting till pick 4, but that's only because teams traded up for the quarterback class. There are only going to be 2 quarterbacks likely to go in the first round. So he lasted until pick 4. The Tennessee Titans were absolutely ecstatic to land him there. I've already heard Browns fans complaining that if they pass on Travis Hunter when they pick at 3, as we sit here, there are going to be some angry Browns fans wanting some answers to some questions.
Yeah, we'll talk about what happens in terms of the mock drafts that you guys did in a second in terms of the quarterback. But I just want to ask you, for Travis Hunter, obviously a two-way star in college. So do you think he's going to have the opportunity to play both ways in the NFL?
Yeah, but here's the thing. He plays more than 100 snaps a game now at Colorado because he and Shedeur Sanders are the 2 biggest shows in town for that football team, for the Buffaloes. That's not sustainable to the next level, in part because of injury. We've seen him suffer some injuries both last year and this year. Didn't keep him out for the season, but he got him banged up. So you would imagine that initially he will play cornerback, and there will be a package of plays, maybe 15 or 20 plays a game, where you get the ball in his hands and let him cook, because he can take over games, not just as a shutdown corner, as I mentioned, but he can take a slant to the house anywhere on the field. And that sort of explosiveness changes the way an offense looks. So it makes sense, like the team like a Jaguars, for example, would need help with the first overall pick with someone like Travis who can do it on both sides. A team like the Patriots will love to get their hands on a Travis Hunter because, again, pair him with Christian Gonzalez in the secondary and then finally give Drake May an explosive weapon. All those things are enticing. All those things are the reason why he's the number one player, and all those reasons are why he has a real chance to go number 1 overall. And also worth noting, Jeremy, a cornerback, and Travis does both, but a cornerback has never been the first overall pick in the NFL draft. So perhaps that changes, at least with an asterisk, if Travis Hunter is able to pull that off.
So the consensus seems to be that when he gets drafted, he'll be drafted as a cornerback.
Right, and I talked to some scouts before the season, and they thought maybe corner only was his best path to the NFL, only because of the injury concerns. Because anecdotally, when you're playing defense, you're giving out the punishment. You're not taking the punishment. And both times he got hurt this year and last year, he was on offense and took some hits. But again, you watch him play, and you tell me you're going to be the coach that says, you know what, don't go out there on offense 15 or 20 times a game. We can handle it, because at the end of the day, you won't be able to handle it, and you'll probably it might cost you your job by the time it's all said and done. So yeah, cornerback first. But if you told me he ended up being an all-pro wide receiver at some point, I would be like, okay, yeah, I see that too.
All right, let's get into the mock draft that you did today with Rick Spielman, talking about the quarterbacks. And you had Hunter that fell down, but Shedeur Sanders was the first quarterback off the board. What is separating Shedeur and Cam Ward at this point for you?
Right, so Rick and I did the mock draft today on the podcast. This graphic is the mock draft I released on Monday for CBSSports.com. So Travis, is a layup for me having the Jaguars take him and not overthink it. But sometimes the Jaguars overthink things, so maybe they do trade down. But you mentioned Shedeur Sanders, his teammate there, number 2 overall. I'll be honest, Jeremy, Cam Ward, I have a smidge ahead of Shedeur. But here's the thing with Shedeur, landing spot's going to matter. And this is just me speculating, but I have a hunch. And Coach Prime has talked about having some say in where his son ends up. I don't know if Cleveland's going to be the place that Shedeur wants to go. So knowing that, I had the Giants trade up a few spots, leapfrog the Raiders, who also need a quarterback, and they take Shedeur Sanders because Brian Daboll has a history of getting the most out of young quarterbacks, not named Daniel Jones. We saw that with Josh Allen, obviously, in Buffalo. It's the biggest media market in the NFL, and you think that probably would appeal to Shedeur, and he'll have a chance to grow into a role. They have Malik Neighbors there. The defense has shown signs with some young players being promising there. The offensive line has to get better for sure, but that's why I had Shedeur going where he went in that mock draft. But if you're asking me who's my quarterback 1 right now, by a hair, it's Cam Ward because he's a little bigger, a little better arm, a little better athlete. But Shedeur's had a fantastic season, had a fantastic 2 years at Colorado. And when you pair that with coming from FCS Jackson State and the progress he's made, he's going to be a first-round pick. The only question is how high does he end up going? And
still have a chance to get to the Big 12 title game coming up in the next couple of weeks. So Ryan Wilson breaking down news with us. This just in. Travis Hunter says he is definitely for sure going to declare for the NFL draft. All right, with the First Pick podcast, you heard Ryan mention it. We talked about it with former general manager Rick Spielman. They're talking about draft picks, doing mock drafts on the podcast, which they did today. You can download and follow with the First Pick wherever you get your podcast audio. You can get the latest episode, that mock draft episode, by scanning that QR code right now. And for all of our mock draft information, you can head over to CBSSports.com.